The Cold War was a time of unrelenting tension. Two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, locked in a global standoff, each one prepared to strike at a moment's notice. Bombers armed with nuclear weapons circled the skies 24/7, engines always hot, crews always ready. In a world where minutes could mean survival or destruction, one idea emerged that sounded both brilliant and insane. What if a bomber could stay in the sky indefinitely? To maintain nuclear readiness, the US kept long-range bombers in constant rotation. Crews lived in the air, refueled mid-flight, and were ready to strike without warning. But this was expensive, logistically complex, and dangerous. The next leap? A bomber that never needed to land. And the only way to do that was nuclear power. The theory: install a reactor in a plane that could run for months without refueling. One design rose to the top of this vision: the Convair NX-2. Developed as part of the US aircraft nuclear propulsion program, the NX-2 was a theoretical long-range bomber designed around a nuclear reactor. It would be a flying fortress, heavy, fast, and self-powered for potentially weeks or months at a time. Convair, the company behind the B-36, led the concept. They imagined a plane with near-infinite range, able to fly around the globe multiple times without ever touching down. The longer it flew, the more valuable it became. But flying with a reactor on board came with massive challenges. The NX-2 wouldn't burn jet fuel. Instead, air would be superheated by a small onboard nuclear reactor and expelled to generate thrust. But that created a nightmare scenario: radiation. If the plane crashed, a nuclear disaster could follow, and shielding the crew. That meant tons of heavy lead and specialized materials. In fact, shielding alone accounted for over 25% of the aircraft's projected weight. Designers even talked about flying the aircraft with the crew sealed in a heavily shielded capsule, like a flying nuclear submarine. To test the theory, the US built a real nuclear-powered aircraft, sort of. The NB-36H Crusader carried a nuclear reactor in flight, but it wasn't connected to the engines. Instead, it was a flying radiation lab, testing whether a nuclear-powered aircraft was even survivable. It flew 47 test missions between 1955 and 1957. The shielding worked. The plane survived. So did the E-crew. But the NX-2, the real powered version, never made it off the drawing board. By the early 1960s, the strategic equation had changed. Nuclear-armed ICBMs could hit targets in minutes. There was less need for bombers flying in circles, and there were big fears about nuclear crashes. Any accident could contaminate vast areas. The aircraft nuclear propulsion program was quietly shut down in 1961. The NX-2 was never built, its reactor never installed. The skies remained free of nuclear engines, at least officially. While the NX-2 never flew, it wasn't a complete waste. The research led to better radiation, shielding, more compact reactor designs, and even influenced future space propulsion ideas. Today, nuclear-powered aircraft are still off the table, but as new reactor tech emerges, compact, safer, more efficient, the idea might return. The dream of an aircraft that never lands hasn't died. It's just waiting.